and welcome. You're watching NewsX and NewsX World. I'm Megha Sharma, and we are focusing on the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's three-nation tour. He's currently in Australia. He will be arriving in Auckland tomorrow. And in the backdrop of the free trade agreement that has been signed between both the countries, India and New Zealand, earlier this year, his visit to New Zealand becomes even more important. To discuss the India-New Zealand trade relations, I'm being joined by Mr. Todd McClay. He is the Trade and Investment Minister of New Zealand. Thank you very much, Minister, for joining us on the telecast. And of course, the most pertinent question, what is expected of Prime Minister Modi's visit to New Zealand tomorrow?
Well, thank you so much for having me on. There's a lot of excitement in New Zealand, the first Indian Prime Minister to visit New Zealand in 40 years, and it really demonstrates the growth of the relationship. Both the government of New Zealand and India have been working closely together over the last 2 or 3 years. Our two Prime Ministers have formed a very strong friendship, as I have with my extremely good friend, Minister Piyush Goyal. And so Prime Minister Modi's visit here will be a celebration for New Zealanders, and it underpins the significance and importance of the free trade agreement that we signed just a few months ago when I came up to New Delhi.
Right, absolutely. Now, you have made several visits to India. You have met your counterpart Piyush Goyal, the Commerce Minister of India, as well. As you said, what were the nitty-gritties of the trade agreement? Was it something, of course it was detailed, but what have been the salient points of this trade agreement?
Well, you're right. I've now visited India 8 times over the last 2 years. I've had about 20 meetings with Piyush Goyal and other ministers in India and New Zealand and in other places around the world. The agreement that we have negotiated and now signed is of very high quality, and it is very good for both India and New Zealand. It's quite well balanced. It has, of course, much better trade access. A number of tariff rates come down for New Zealand goods into India. We've also agreed to cooperate. We're going to have a lot of our agencies and our companies help working away with Indian producers, food producers, to improve a lot of what is done there, very similar to what we've done in New Zealand. And at the same time, from day one, all tariff rates on Indian goods and services into New Zealand will go to zero. So unprecedented access for Indian producers into New Zealand.
Absolutely. Of course, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Christopher Luxon, just made a very important announcement that 57% of New Zealand exports to India are going to become tariff-free as soon as this agreement is finalized and implemented. What are going to be the important impact of it on New Zealand businesses?
Well, it gives New Zealand businesses an opportunity to diversify. Many of them are very interested in India. We have some companies that already come to India and they've started to establish offices. They're investing in India. They're establishing a presence there. But at the same time, it means that the relationship that we have grown government to government can now go people to people. You know, New Zealand is a small country. We're only 5 million people, but we consume much greater than our relative size. As an example, we did a trade agreement with China many years ago. There are only a mere few $1 billion worth of trade in both directions. This year we will purchase $20 billion worth of imports from China. And so the free trade agreement with India gives an opportunity for New Zealand consumers and businesses to diversify. I think you will see our two-way trade, India and New Zealand, go up very, very quickly. And it will be complementary. In fact, we will see many, many more business partnerships that will help New Zealand and Indian companies do well, not only in our two countries, but actually together in many other parts of the world.
Talking about New Zealand's immigration policy, how does it work and complement India's mobility and migration impetus? And was this also part of the free trade agreement that was signed?
Well, importantly, it is around mobility. So firstly, Indian companies under certain circumstances will have a right to come and establish in New Zealand to provide services here and bring some of their senior executives from India with them, as New Zealand businesses will in India. We also have another component, which is around a skilled visa category for workers. We've agreed 1,670 workers per year in areas that New Zealand has a need for skills, agreed between the two governments, can apply and get a visa to come to New Zealand, work for 3 years, and then return home at the end of that. And these are things like in IT or around some areas of education or healthcare or construction engineers, just a few examples. We're very keen for young Indians to come to New Zealand, as an example, to get an education. We want young New Zealanders to go to India to learn more and make friends and perhaps do education or help with education. So I think, as well as the goods and services trade that happens always when you sign a free trade agreement, those people-to-people links, the culture, the sport, those will grow very, very quickly. As an example, Air New Zealand has announced when we came up for the signing, they're opening 3 offices in India and will put their people there to start promoting New Zealand as a destination. And Air India and Air New Zealand have just this last week applied for the ability through our competition regulator to cooperate so we can have direct flights between India and New Zealand. That means it will be easier for family to visit each other, for tourists to come and travel backwards and forwards, but equally for businesses to travel up and down to India more quickly. That's what's going to grow this relationship and the trade between us.
Prime Minister Modi, in fact, an Indian Prime Minister, head of government, is traveling to New Zealand after 40 years. What is the significance of it, and why do you think it took 4 decades for this bilateral association relationship to grow further?
Well, India and New Zealand have a very long history. You're the world's largest democracy. We're both one of the oldest democracies together. And ultimately, there have always been very good links. But for a period of time, it wasn't as obvious. And so when we came to government, we said that our relationship with India would be a strategic priority for our government. And you've seen many visits to India. As I said, I've been there 8 times now. Many of my ministerial colleagues have been there. The Foreign Minister has visited twice, I think. The Prime Minister led our largest business delegation trade mission to India just 2 years ago when we launched the FTA negotiations. And so I think the importance of Prime Minister Modi coming to New Zealand underpins that both governments want to grow the relationship. Both of us see it as important. And in a world of uncertainty where many of the norms are being challenged, India and New Zealand governments are saying, we have negotiated a high-quality free trade agreement. We're going to respect the rules there, and we're going to find ways to work more closely together on the world stage. And so this is just a further demonstration of the importance of that. Prime Minister Modi will be very, very well received in New Zealand by all New Zealanders, but particularly the Indian New Zealand community here. It is our 3rd largest ethnic group in New Zealand now, and there is going to be a very, very big celebration and public event. I'm looking forward to going along to it. Almost everybody I meet wants to come along. The numbers are, don't allow that to happen. But again, it is an opportunity for Indian New Zealanders and New Zealand Indians and every New Zealander to welcome Prime Minister Modi to our shores.
Besides trade and investment, which other sectors are the focus of India and New Zealand bilateral ties? Are there any conversations happening that revolve around energy and critical minerals?
Yes, there's a number of areas around energy, around meeting climate change obligations. How can we do that without harming businesses and putting up a cost? A lot of the people-to-people links, we're starting to look at ways through, there could be defence cooperation. New Zealand has the ability, many countries of the world come here to make their films. We think Bollywood could, find some real opportunities to be involved in film production here in New Zealand as well. But across the board, I think you're going to see cooperation. We think think science and innovation is a real area for cooperation. In the agricultural space, New Zealand is known as one of the best in the world for agriculture and innovation. How can we help our farmers to produce more and to earn more? And I know there's a great desire to cooperate amongst scientists and government agencies with India. So I think the signing of the free trade agreement is the first step. Prime Minister Modi's visit here is the next step, one of celebration, and then we need to get on and make that free trade agreement work. But across the board, you will see the relationship grow.
Also, Prime Minister Modi's visit to New Zealand comes several months after the geopolitical turmoil that we are witnessing in West Asia, which has impacted the rest of the world. How do you see this FTA strengthening resilient supply chains and economic cooperation at a time of this growing global uncertainty?
Well, look, that's a very important reason for the free trade agreement. We have negotiated one of the highest quality agreements that New Zealand or India has ever signed, and it provides certainty to our business communities and to our people. And it really says to the world, with all of the uncertainty where people are not sure of the rules or whether they'll be honoured, New Zealand and India have said we will not only negotiate a high quality agreement and sign it, but we will respect the rules. And I think that sends a very clear message to many other countries of the world, in fact, that they should follow the lead of India and New Zealand. Rules actually create certainty and predictability, and that makes it easier not only for governments and people, but for businesses. So our achievement together is significant, and I know that many, many other parts of the world are marveling at the achievement and also looking to now follow it, to emulate it.
You know, there's another important aspect that binds India and New Zealand together. We're talking about sports, and in sports it's cricket. Do you see any, growth aspects when it comes to cooperation between the two countries in cricket? You know, leagues being played in India and New Zealand. What's on the anvil?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there are many Indian cricketers come to New Zealand. Of course, many New Zealand cricketers go to India to play there. It is a great area of success for both of our nations, and one that we can cooperate together more. I think this year marks 60 years of the first cricket game between us, and so there are going to be many, many tests together, and it is a great way to bring nations more closely together. You know, some of the areas outside of trade that come as a result of the trade agreement are equally as important. You know, there will be opportunities for young Indians to come and for New Zealanders to help be involved and engage with them around sport and, you know, that sort of contribution. And so it is something New Zealanders think about. Of course, the last T20 World Cup final was India versus New Zealand, and India this time was the victor. We think we should work towards a rematch, and it was such a great game. Yeah. We'd like another go.
I do want to also raise this question about the global tariff wars that have impacted countries, and New Zealand and India have not been, alien to it. Is this also a reason for countries, including New Zealand, to push forth this trade agreement, free trade, resilient supply chains with India, as we have seen with the trade agreement between India and European Union and United Kingdom as well?
Yes, absolutely. If you think about what's happened with America, with the changing nature of their tariff rate, creates uncertainty. It makes it hard for US consumers. The costs go up. But at the same time, it's very hard for New Zealand or Indian exporters to that market, not knowing what the tariff rate may be. And so this free trade agreement, along with the others that we have and India has recently signed, gives options to our exporters. If they want to go and export into the US, we would support them, but at the same time, they can look towards many other parts of the world, including India. So it's an and strategy. I think you will see the two-way trade go up exponentially quickly, very, very quickly. And that's a very, very positive thing. Because when countries trade with each other and they can respect the rules, then the relationship grows and there is much more certainty, less uncertainty. I think you're going to see many more New Zealanders travel to India for tourism and for hospitality and for business, and it will be the same from India, and that can only be a good thing.
Minister Todd McClay, thank you very much for speaking to us. Of course, like you, we are really looking forward to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit, and of course there is going to be that very important bilateral meeting that happens between the two leaders of both the countries.
Thank you so much.
Well, that is the Investment and Trade Minister of New Zealand speaking to us exclusively. Thank you for watching us on NewsX and NewsX World. With that, it's a wrap.